Hello everybody. So this is my first YouTube video ever, and we'll see how it goes. I just want to fill you in on these 3D printed masts that I've been doing and how to adjust them and kind of show you what I've been doing. So maybe it'll be helpful for you if you have one of these, if you're printing one of these, if you get one from me that you need to adjust and whatnot. So to start with, these are the 3D printed masks that came from Dr. Spencer Zaugg in Billings, Montana, working with a group at a filter plant there in Billings. So I printed these on, well, it's actually my son's 3D printer that he built for his 4-H project, but it's a Tevo Tarantula Pro. I think it was $220 a few months ago on the Amazon. I looked the other day and they are sold out, but if you already have one, it's a good printer. It is cheap, relatively cheap. The ones that we have at work where I teach are between $3,000 and $5,000 each. They do higher resolution, but for the money, I think this is a pretty good 3D printer. So this is how the mask comes out. You'll see it actually is two pieces. It prints the filter holder and mask separately. The print settings that I have for these are at 0.2 or 0.25 millimeters per layer, 20% infill using Archimedean cords. And you can see that there is some, you do see the layers quite a bit. That would go down if I cut the layer thickness down, and probably if I made some adjustments on my z-axis and you know, trick the printer out a little bit more. But I'm more interested in getting masks done than I am in just tinkering with the printer. But this is how it comes out. This one has a 1 written in it because this is at 100%. I have others that are at a 0.85% of the original size, 0.9%. So this is kind of the standard, or a little bit large for mass in general. This would be for somebody that's, you know, smaller. The 0.9 is what my partner uses in her clinic that we made for her, and it fits pretty good. The smallest I made was a 0.8 for my son. He's 10, and it fits him pretty well. So that's how it comes out of the printer. It takes, the 0.9s take about 3 to 3.5 hours to print. The 1s take, I think, a little less than 4 hours to print. The filament I'm using is from a company called Silk, I think. I bought it off the Amazon. I bought silver, gold, and copper just because it was fun. Well, the first spool I bought was the silver, and it works quite well. We've done some like lacrosse stick holders for it and some lacrosse ball holders and stuff like that. And it looks neat. Silver texture to it, silver tone to it. And then when I ordered some more kind of hurriedly, I ordered 2 more spools. I didn't want to mess around with having to get to know another kind of filament. I wanted to go with what I knew worked. So I just ordered the same brand, only I got it in gold. And then I have another one that's in copper. So, you know, it looks kind of fun too for the mask. I mean, in the middle of a national crisis, why not, you know, look like you're from the future? So that's the printed part of it. Once it gets printed, there's a couple of things you have to pay attention to. You got to, you know, take the stray edges off it and whatnot, depending on how good the 3D printer you used was. That might be quite quick, or it might not be. And then you've got to get it to a point that you get a good seal. So there's 2 ways that I've been finishing the edges. The first way that I picked up from another YouTuber was to use this foam tape. So this is waterproof foam tape. If you use this, make sure you're using something that's non-porous, because you've got to get a seal. I found 1 roll at a, actually I think I found it at the Walmart. No, I didn't. They were out. I found it, I think, at a CVS, and it was, next year was the brand name stuff. And then that was all I had, and I did, I don't know, 4 or 5 masks, and I was, you know, past halfway with it, and it became obvious that that wasn't going to hold out very long. I looked around, didn't find any more until last night. I stopped in at a Walgreens that I just happened to be passing by. It wasn't a normal route that I was on, and I put my mask on and ran in and found 3 rolls there. So I hate to sound like a panic buyer, but I went ahead and bought all 3 rolls of those, so now I can do some more with it. The first couple that I did, I used a full width of tape, but you don't really need that. What you can do, or what you should do, is cut the tape in half. You should also make sure that you have your glasses handy before you start your videoing. So what I do is I start up at the most important part, which is up by the nose here. So I'll cut enough to make that bend. And then I'll take it and cut it in half. And then you want to make sure that when you put it down into the nose that you get it flat without stretching it out, because you don't want it to gap out afterwards. And then get it along that ridge, get it along this ridge, and then to get it smooth in there, I take the end of my Sharpie and kind of roll it in there. So that's nice and even. And then the next part I do is that other part at the bottom. Try to even it out. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of is if you have any oil on the mask before you start doing this, you've got to clean that off with something. You can, wash it in soap and water, or you can use alcohol if you have it. I know that alcohol is in kind of short supply now. But if you put it on your face ahead of time, if you have fairly oily skin like I do, you're going to get oils on there and your tape is not going to stick, and then you're going to be wasting tape. But get it around there, and then you would add pieces to that part. Let's see. There we go. Like so. And what I like to do is the factory edge to the outside, overlap it just barely by like a 1/16 of an inch or so. I have no idea how many millimeters that is. I don't speak millimeters. And then you can let it overlap at the bottom. You want to be careful though, if you're overlapping, you want to make sure that you're not causing a hole later on. Start this one down here. Like so. Now, once you get that, what you want to do is check to see if you can get a positive and negative seal. So you can see my face for this. And what you'll do, put it on. What I'm doing is I'm just blocking the air hole and checking for the seal. So it's a little bit big in here and in here. So there's a couple of things you can do for that. You can add more tape if you have it, or you can shape the mask to your face. So what you would do for that is, I've been using a heat gun, or I use a heat gun that I have, that I bought from Central Pneumatic, or from the Harbor Freight. I don't remember how much it was because I bought it, I don't know, last century, I guess. But it's strong enough that you can heat it up, shift it to your face, then let it cool. That works well. Give it a shot. So if I hold it, both sides, let it cool. Yeah, didn't take much. I'll see if I can speed that up through the video. Now watch, one thing I noticed here is that when it was hot, I hit this little, the hoop for the strap, and I squeezed it in. So if you do that, be careful. So now when I put my hand over it and inhale, I can feel it suck up against my face. When I exhale, no obvious air leaks come out. So I'm good for a seal, both positive and negative. And now I'm ready for the next step. If you don't have a heat gun, you can use a hair dryer. It might take a little bit longer. You can use hot water. Don't use boiling water. Might have, you know, kind of negative effects. This is PLA that I used, which has a pretty low melting point, low glass point. I deformed it a little bit in there, but it didn't affect the fit. Just don't overheat it. Be careful. You could hold it high above the stove. I haven't tried to put it in a microwave. I don't know how that would go, but maybe I'll try it later. So, what if you can't find this foam tape? The other thing that I did was use 100% silicone. So this is the GE 100% silicone. It's the 2 Plus, which is the silicone that is 30-minute rain ready. So what I've been doing is, when it comes off the printer, I put a pretty thick bead of silicone onto it. I smooth it a little bit, let it sit for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I go back and kind of push it down because it gets a skin on it. And then you can flatten it out and make sure it's over the edge, and then you get a pretty good seal with that. And yes, I'm going to sanitize all of these before I distribute them. And you can shape it the same way. Just watch when you're shaping it. If you overheat the silicone, it's going to get gooey. If you put it on your face while it's like that, it could be a drag. You can also use, to make it fit, this is also waterproof tape. I think this I did get at the Walmart. It's just thinner. It's not foamy, so it doesn't work quite as well as the other stuff. But it is occlusive, so it doesn't let air through, and will work well, especially if you have to fill in gaps. So once you have achieved a good seal, it's time to do your filter. So there's two things we've been using for filters. we've been using high efficiency vacuum cleaner bags. The advertisement for these on the Amazon said that they were HEPA bags. I spoke with somebody at a filter producing plant that kind of enlightened me that there are no strong regulations on what constitutes HEPA. And you know, HEPA in the States is supposed to be 99.97% efficiency for particles 0.3 microns and larger. However, there's not a lot of regulation in who can hold the HEPA name and who can't, or how it's thrown up. So it's very possible that these aren't actually HEPA rated, but they are pretty high efficiency. You can even see when you look through it, you know, it's pretty fine, and it is 2-layer or 3-layer, like so. So you could adjust it and, you know, take it down to just that center layer if you wanted to. These are pretty constrictive. So I noticed that when I've worn it in public, you know, you can't breathe fast in it. So I wouldn't recommend it for jogging. The other option is to use filter media that is cut out of, and these are the bag before it's cut. So if you get the bag, I just cut the top and the bottom off, and then cut down the center and open it up, like so. If you use the bag, you want the outside of the bag towards the inside of the mask, and the reason for that is if it does slough off some fiberglass inside, you want to be able to stop that. You don't want the fiberglass going to your lungs. So take the outside of the bag, put the mask on it, like so, trace around it, cut it. I'll show you that in a sec. So vacuum cleaner bags are an option if you can get them. The other thing that I use is this filter media, which is from a HVAC or furnace filter. This stack right here is from a single 20 by 25 Filtrete filter that's the 1900, which I believe is the highest that Filtrete makes. It says it takes out bacteria and viruses, so you know, it's a good option. I tried that initially with, I forgot what brand this was, but this one came from Home Depot. This was a Honeywell, and this is the FPR filter performance rating, which is Home Depot's own little thing. Now, for this one, the issue is when you're taking it off the metal, it's glued to the metal a little bit heavier. So when I was using this, I doubled it. The reason being is if you get any kind of like micro tears when you're pulling it off, I was cutting it with a razor, I think. So it's best to just, if you can find the Filtrete, which is at Lowe's, I would go with that. If all you have is a Home Depot, or you're just using some in your basement, you can get it. I would just recommend doubling this filter if you get it, so that it's fine. Now, those are those two options in the bags. If you have another N95 mask, that you could probably cut one N95 up to make 5 of these. So I'm going to do the filter for this one right here from the Filtrete, and what I did was I marked, before I tore that out of the frame, I marked the direction of flow. The reason why is there's a side that where it enters that can be a little bit loose, and when I spoke to the guy at the filter factory in Montana, you know, he pointed out, make sure that that side is pointed out so that you're not sucking any stray fibers into your lungs. So about that conversation, I called them looking for filters for these. They're running low on material, very low on material, and like everything else, you've got to make do with what you can get. These, while I'm not a biomedical engineer, you know, this is what I got. This is what I've been using. There's several doctors and nurses that I've given these to that they're using because they don't have N95 masks. Theoretically, while I have no empirical proof of it, these should be as effective, if not more effective, than an N95 mask. So there you go. That's my disclaimer. Set the mask on top of the filter and trace around it. Now make sure you have enough at the edge there, and I'll show you why. I'm going to do my Sharpie. So take the Sharpie, I use a fine tip, and trace around the inside. Leave yourself enough to overlap on the edges and cut a wide margin. Now I will tell you that you're cutting fiberglass, whether it's the bags or this, so you're going to ruin your scissors eventually. Take this, set it over the hole. Take this piece here and line it up with the square and push it in. So what you want to make sure of here is that you've got some overhang all the way around, right? If you don't, you may have gaps. So make sure you look in and you see there's overhang all the way around, and then hold it up to the light and make sure that you don't have any obvious air gaps in it. If you do, you may need to double the filter to make it a little bit a little bit tighter. Put it on. Check your seal. It's good. Filter's in. Now, I will tell you that these Filtrete coming out of those are going to be less restrictive than the vacuum cleaner bags. If it's rated, if it does perform the way Filtrete says it does, which I have no reason to believe it doesn't, it should still be just as effective and may even be better if you're in a situation that you need it to be tighter. So now filter's in, seal is good, straps. We started out, I had a bag of these big rubber bands that I got at the Walmart and put them on. They work pretty good, depending on how big your head is, you know, but like everything else, we didn't have a ton of them. Gonna run out quick. So the other thing I came up with is this method here. And what this is Mason's line that I got at the Home Depot. This was the first time I tried it. It's snug, holds a good seal, but it can be difficult to put on. What I noticed is if I cut the lines 18 inches, which I believe is what this one is, that's a good length to start with. So what you're going to do is get your rubber band, put the Mason's line through one of the holes, stick the rubber band through it, and to start off I would do it close to the end because you can always make it tighter. Kind of put whatever knot you like. The nice thing about the Mason's line as opposed to say twine is it's I believe it's polypropylene, so it can be cleaned, right? If you use twine or your kid's cotton string or whatever, that's fine. Just know that if you know that you have, well, anytime you come in and you need to sanitize it, you need to go ahead and scrap that string and replace it, because you can't sanitize the cotton. And I don't know, maybe if you autoclave it or something like that, I don't know what you could do to sanitize cotton. Splash it with alcohol. I don't know. Seems like a lot of trouble. If you have the polypropylene, use that. Then take the next piece, like so. And then you can take that, slide it over, and you get a pretty good seal with that. Of course, you need one around the bottom as well. That's one way to do it. This one has it on both. Slide it over the top. And then this one. This match needs to be fitted. You see the idea. This was one of the first masks I did. This is the one I wear when I go out now. And it had these elastics. These are a little bit easier to work with, but if you can't find them, this is good too. And you know, these are just the smaller elastics that are, well, they're wider, so they're harder to get through those holes, but also they're shorter. I found this bag last night at the Walgreens, and this has got a bunch of different sizes in it, so maybe I'll find some long enough in there. Other things, I found elastic. This is 1 inch wide elastic that can probably be cut into thirds. I haven't tried that yet, but also you could take this and make a fairly wide loop in it, and then, you know, hook it onto there. I haven't gotten to that point yet. It's just kind of planning ahead for what I'll be doing and go from there. Hopefully this is informative. Let me know if you have any suggestions. Again, I'm not a regular YouTuber. This is the first time, so please don't waste a lot of energy trying to tell me what I'm doing wrong with it. Appreciate you. Hope it's useful. Bye.